Hey guys, just finished our latest episode with Saksham, who's the co-founder of Lights Out Studio. They do great product and design work. Saksham talks a little bit about his influences in school and college that shaped him to be who he is now. I think you'll enjoy the episode. We're doing interesting work at Hushl. We're a creator economy platform. We're trying to build a LinkedIn for young adults in the creator economy. Check us out at www.hushl.in. Cool. No, this is a new episode. We're excited to have Saksham. Hi, Saksham.
What's up?
What's up, man?
I'm excited as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm here on a Sunday. So I'm super excited, don't worry.
In HSR layout, which he's been crying about for since he's come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's far off.
Cool. Let's get started. So, cool. Hi, Saksham.
What's up?
How's it going, man?
No bad. I'm here on a Sunday, so pretty pumped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in HSR and he's been crying about it for a while.
Yeah. Distances. I mean, I think if you can avoid driving, you should. If you can avoid travel, you totally should, because it's not India's not really a rageless country.
You got to see our beautiful set.
I know. No, so all of this just energizes me. So once I got in, I was just very happy. But until then, finding parking and then first world problems, really sorry, but yeah, gotta deal with it.
That's great. Cool. So, Saksham,
Yo,
we'd love to dig into your career.
awesome.
Why don't you give us a 1-minute summary?
Haven't done that in a while, but interesting.
Yeah.
So very non-CV, right?
Yeah, like give us the interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Give us the interesting stuff. Okay, cool. So career, I think for me, began when, or the construct of it began back in college, where I got into a bunch of extracurriculars, and I just realized that this is something I enjoy more than academics. So, and that was a good realization for me, not for my parents, and it just went on to it just compounded into events and just like participating in a lot of things in and around town. So I was never into sports, so I think this was my way of compensating for.
Like, what were you doing? Like debates and
this was
drama?
all. Yeah, this was debates, not drama. As much as I would like to believe, but I think life was giving enough, so I just didn't get into it professionally.
You did an MUN where we bumped into each other.
We bumped into. I have very little recollection of that, but he says so. Yeah, and he gives the details right. Yeah, so I mean, extracurriculars was what gave me a little push into realizing that something around communication is what I want to do, and my career evolved from there to wanting to do mass media, and gradually realizing, or rather going to a career counselor, right? And I know you'll pick on this eventually, so I'm just giving you some fodder. So I went to a career counselor, right? A very typical test. And
how many hours was the test?
No, just an hour, right? Like those aptitude tests that you
spoke
give.
to somebody before this in the
gave a
previous
3-hour
episode.
career
Gave a
counseling.
I can totally shatter the construct of career counseling in India, but maybe for another day.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was given a test and then some aptitude test and then some questions, psychological test or whatever those things are, 3-4 tests. And then at the end of it, this one lady comes to me and she's like, you have 3 options. You have engineering, medical, and management, business management. I don't think medical is an interest area for you. I'm like, of course, I know that. Like, what would even give that out? And then she's like, okay, engineering, you're not going to do well because you suck at maths. And at that time, I was prepping for IIT. Or at least thinking I was prepping for IIT, right? Like typical class 11, class 12, you're preparing for JEE and AIEEE and everything. And then that is all that I wanted my parents to hear actually, right? Like this guy is not going to get into engineering. And so I came back and I just threw away the books. I said, see, listen, this is your result. I'm not going to get into engineering. And from there, she gave me management as a choice, and my parents are very clear. You're not doing media because it's very siloed as a profession. You'll restrict yourself, you'll corner yourself down. So I said, okay, fine. As long as I'm not doing engineering, it's a good barter. And I got into business management typically as a graduate. In graduation, got into a nice college in Bombay. I think that changed a bunch of things for me. Got into MUNs and so on there. And very eventually, I realized that I wanted to get into sales. I mean, I just didn't know
Sales.
what sales is, but sales. I got into MBA because I felt that if I was going to do a job right after graduation, it was going to pay me really less. Right? Very little understanding of how the world works at that point of time. You think that this is all that the world is, and the decisions you're taking are great. So I got into MBA right after college, and I said, I want to get into sales. So now sales, if you typically ask an inexperienced individual, sales for them is HUL, P&G, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and so on. So I'm like, this is what I want to do, right? So I got an internship with Coke. 3 months into that, and I realized that this sucks. And
Why did it suck?
because I was doing pretty well, but I just didn't enjoy it. Like, I did not enjoy going out in the heat and selling Coke to restaurants and pan tapris.
Dude doesn't like to come to HSR layout from like.
But then life was very different back then. I was changing 3 trains to reach college, so I was pretty much in the grind. So, so I was ready for it, mentally prepared. But I realized that that's not what I want to do, and I think that's what an internship at least should do. What beyond everything that you learn, you should realize what you don't want to get into, and that for me was a bit of an opener. So I came back into my second year of MBA and realized that let's explore something in B2B sales, without getting into the details of dissecting how I got this or how I landed this job. I got into this company called JLL, which was into real estate consulting.
The big name and
The big name, but I just knew this from the outside, right? Because until you're in it, whether you're part of JLL or MasterCard or Barclays, I mean, you don't know shit about it. You know, you're just looking at it as an outsider, and you're saying, great name. At a point of time, I thought I would appear somewhere in brand equity within the Economic Times, but now I'm going to be on page 2 because that's where the real estate section is, right? So that was just my breakdown. Got into it, experientially realized that this is great. I was enjoying real estate. I was absolutely loving every single day at work because I was really good at it. Because it was sale. And the thing that was different with this sale versus Coca-Cola, and this is someone else who made me realize this, was I was selling to a social strata at par or above me. And I think that's a little bit of a difference in sales, right? B2B sales is very different. The work culture was great. And I spent 4 years at JLL. And also realizing the fact that as good as I am, I do not see myself in this for the next 10 years. And I knew that I had to build something on my own. While at that point of time, the construct of building something on my own was largely in and around the real estate spectrum, like get into real estate consulting or start a co-working venture or just like something or the other. So I got out of JLL when I found an interesting opportunity, found a bunch of, wouldn't call them kids, guys who are building a venture outside into co-working, and we just vibed really well. Spent about 6 months, the last 6 months of my JLL career with them, and realized that this is what I want to do. So I got into co-working as a founder, as a co-founder, and alongside we started a media agency, right? Because somewhere deep down from those class 11, class 12, media wala kida was just, it was there. So I said, let's try advertising. If not the academia, let's try the experiential side of entrepreneurship and advertising. Both of these businesses is what we ran together. You asked for a minute, sorry, I got a little long. But yeah, I'm just like tapering this down. So yeah, and realized that, so in 2.5 years, we parted ways with the co-working venture because there was a lot happening. There was a lot happening in co-working in India, and it was just like
it was competitive.
It was competitive, and it was pure scale without quality, and that was the only way out. You couldn't sustain a real estate heavy business without investments. So, and that was not my idea of co-working, and that was neither anyone's idea of co-working between the 4 of us. So we just parted ways with co-working, and we retained the idea of the agency. over a period of time, the agency morphed to become a product studio because we also realized experientially that we were not great at advertising. Right? Like there were dime a dozen and we were already into product design, but it was like a dark horse that became...
Like, give me an example of like how you realized that advertising was not your cup of tea.
Because I like sales, we were able to land new clients every single time. But we weren't able to retain them because... Okay, so this gets into the truth of what advertising is a little. Advertising or social media rather, right? Let's bring it down to social media because that's what we were doing. We weren't doing advertising really. Social media is a FOMO-driven business. If you can create FOMO for your audience, you sustain and you see another day, right? What's happening on a Friday night on Instagram between 20 brands is they're trying to, they're fighting for the mind share of their customers. So it's a very FOMO-driven business, which means that everyone's competing with, so, you know, the mindset is, even if you're doing really well for a brand, they would be like, you know what, our competitor's doing better because, yeah, one fine strategy might work a little better on social media. And we realized that that's not the game that we want to be into. So we don't want to be working on a Thursday night thinking Friday morning mein post kya jayega. That is why mindset was just not aligned.
Why? Because it was, what was it? Was it too much pressure? Was it like, what is it about what you do now? Now you run a product design studio.
Clients are never happy in social media. They're just never happy. And rightly so. I'm never happy with what's happening on our accounts because we always feel that there's something better. And who's doing it? You've outsourced it to an agency. So they're going to do it. And all the blame goes on to them, even if they're working. And very honestly, to scale the agency business is the only way for it to run. You can't, you have to be all over. You have to be doing a bunch of things. There are thin lines between art and management and ad and copy, very thin lines, and they end up getting blurred. So we realized that this is too much of machinery to manage or automate or scale, and hence that wasn't very fun to do. So as much as we were doing well, we were not enjoying it. The talent wasn't happy and so on. And so we realized, you know what, let's chop this off from our scheme of studio or agency, and we morphed into a studio, and we realized that the design studio is what we're really passionate about. We were still doing, but we were doing it under the construct of an agency, and we gradually morphed it into a studio. So the difference in the studio mindset is...
Yeah, like really break this down for us and everybody that's listening. And
I have no clue what a design studio is.
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference between when you say an agency and like a studio? Like, explain it like we're five.
So, an agency, or let me start with a studio, right? A studio is something that I feel is really nuanced, is hyper-focused. So we really focus on, and I'm not going to talk about lights out as much, I'm just going to give you like a more broader understanding of it. A studio should ideally be really hyper-focused, should be nuanced. You shouldn't be able to productize and scale things up, right? A studio should ideally not have under 200 people. That's not the idea of a studio, because then you are losing the essence of quality, right? Imagine it to be like, you're just focused on something and you do that really, really well, right? And so for us, that was product design. We did product design really well. Now, very easy to add front and back end development, very easy to add some aspects of marketing and say, you know what, this is our full package and we're going to give you. But then you're not doing justice to either. So we felt that choosing a narrower path, reducing what we can do within the spectrum of a business as an outsider is what we want to be, is what we choose, right? That's one aspect of what is a studio. The other aspect of a studio is the relationship you have with your customers. You essentially end up becoming partners. As much as you're on the outside, you are on the outside because you bring in certain perspectives, you ask certain questions, you nudge them that they can't do. And I'll draw some parallels on this. Say, for example, you take the best athletes in the world and you take coaches who manage or map their mental health or mental well-being or just attitude and personality. All of those people are not athletes. So they don't run the sprints, or they don't swim, right? Or they don't play the sport, but they are from the outside with the athlete, just channelizing their mindset. That is what a studio does. So we're not in the same business as them. Even if we recommend or help, say, consumer businesses or e-com businesses, we don't run an e-com business. So why should someone really come to us? Like, I mean, we should ideally not understand that. But the idea is we do, not as an insider or as a player, but as a consultant, as somebody who nudges them to just think differently. That's the studio mentality.
Got it. So I'm picking up on two things.
Yeah.
One of which is you're saying that it sounds like between an agency and a studio, the relationships that you have with your clients are just way deeper in a studio than they are with an agency, because you're saying that, they're almost like partners with us.
Yeah.
Maybe with an agency, it's a lot more transactional.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that you're talking about a studio is that there's an element of sort of expertise, and therefore maybe there's also maybe an element of time which is slower. Do you get
Yes.
is that right? Would you
That
say?
is right. Also, just like building onto the first part where we work as partners, I think we are very clear in our thesis. If you come to us with a written brief, right? Can you do these 3 things for us? There's a very high chance that someone else will do that for you, right? We like tackling challenges. So you come to us with, and this is what usually happens. They come to us with challenges. Acquisition's doing great, retentions needs to stable in. Right? We need to get better with retention, or let's build a community, or let's build a new product into this, or competition is catching up, we want to build faster, or whatever that is, right? Those are challenges. And we start tackling those challenges rather than briefs, which also means that we tailor our approach to suit every customer. And I categorically call them customer and not clients, because I feel clients is both client and agency for me are a little bit of a dirty word.
Wow, you're really like,
Yeah.
really like, you're like, I'm not an agency, I don't
Yeah.
want to do that. You're
We've
very clear
created
about-
so much content around why we're a studio, because we have literally received the feedback from prospective customers we work with and talent that this is the difference that we essentially need to go through, to read, to understand, and that needs to be out there. We have created so much content that says why are we an agent, why are we a studio, not an agency, and it dives into each of these aspects really well. Because I'm not saying an agency cannot prosper in terms of the field that we're in. This is just what we choose to be.
Right. Saksham, I want to go back to
Sure.
your career,
Okay.
which is at some point you decided to get into building a business.
Yeah.
You've also held a job for a bit.
Yeah.
I think I'm reminded of Naval's quote, where he says, you can't get rich by renting out your time.
Yeah.
Now you make several $100,000 in a year. And obviously you had like a job that paid you X amount.
Yeah.
What was the switch that essentially got you to move to entrepreneurship? And what has been your biggest learning in this sort of journey of yours?
Yeah. I could go deep. I'm going to keep it more peripheral, and then you see how much you want to dive in. I think the reason I personally switched was I was very sure I want to work for myself. If I'm putting in the 12, 13, 15 hours a day in my job, and if I'm really good at it, I can do that for my own self. And I think that's something that runs in every entrepreneur's mind, that you want to build something for yourself, right? As much as you cliche the term, it's a very 0 to 1 mentality. Right? You want to constantly get associated, be part of the 0 to 1 journey, 0 to 1 games, and so on. That's one. And the second was, I think for me, the push really was a lot of inspiration and motivation around. So I was always trying to seek motivation and inspiration from outside of my industry, sector, comfort zone. And that is where there's a bit of a difference.
And was there someone who sort of inspired you in the process? Or?
A lot of people just around, right? Like what was happening in India, I was fully aware. And I felt, and I related to that. So whenever I met an entrepreneur, even as a client back in JLL, I used to be really motivated by by their experiences, what they're going through, the challenges that they tackle on a day-to-day basis, building teams, right, taking things to market. All of those things were just inherently there. And I just realized that the answer to this is entrepreneurship. Like, there's nothing else. You can rise up the ranks and become a leader within an organization, and you call it an entrepreneur and so on, but it's still not your baby. And for me, that was important. And the third bit that I think was, I was privileged enough to have landed a job that was really well paying. So I knew that I had a bit of a cushion for the next couple of years. And so I could take that leap. And had I done it any sooner, I would have jumped off a cliff without a parachute. And if I had done it any later, I think it would have been far later in life to, go through those challenges or experientially build things, because after a point age
So is there a
just
right time to
there
make that
isn't,
switch? Or is it
absolutely.
just
No,
completely in your
it's
head?
just whenever you're mentally ready. I wouldn't say it's because how you age or how soon or fast you want to jump in. I think when you're mentally ready. I tried to get into entrepreneurship a couple of times even before this, while I was working. And
this one felt a little bit more different?
This one felt the right time. And I spoke to a few people who were guiding me at that time. And they were all like, you know what, the past 2 times that you've tried to do this, we were not very sure of either the idea of what you wanted to get into, or just like how are you going to execute, but this one feels right, so just go for it. And my boss was very instrumental in pushing me, and she still remains a very good well-wisher and friend. And she just said, as much as it was a loss for her in the team, and she knew that, I took a lot of learning from that as long as you can look at the greater good of the individual and not the organization, it's always the right decision.
I mean, we've talked about this, like when is the right time to move? I think he seems to say some financial cushion, number one.
Possibly.
An idea whose time is probably now, either in your head or...
I don't know if you care about the ideas.
I don't, yeah.
Not so much about the idea?
No, because the idea that I started out with didn't work. So my first venture, in all honesty, failed. It didn't seem like it because I had a cushion of the second venture that we started alongside.
Right.
So...
so what are the 3 things then? If there were 3 things?
So I think one is...
that gets someone to get there.
There has to be an external factor. For me, the external factor was money, that I was financially well cushioned, and for someone else, it could be the absolute opposite. Right? You're out of all other options financially to sustain, so you get into entrepreneurship, and you don't even realize you get into entrepreneurship. So maybe that is one. The second could be, and it may really differ for people actually. The second could be you found the right set of people to do it with. If you're building it with someone, and I think that's
team, a good team.
That's team. Yeah, that's super critical, because entrepreneurship just is a lonely journey, and you need someone to, rattle off the day finally when it ends.
Right.
So I think that's the second, and I don't know if there's a third, but I think I'll just stick to these 2. These 2 for me were definitely really important.
Is that the same with you?
Yeah, Adil's great. I've met him, and I think now I'm doing Hushl with like a co-founder. So I think the people is just great. I would also I think the idea will come as long as I think you're having fun. I think as long as you find the right person, that's great. I think Akash is great. I think I also
feel that there are a lot of people who do this individually. If you can realize that whether or not you want to do it with someone, that realization is super important. Like for me, it was very clear. I couldn't have done this individually. As much as I could shoulder most responsibilities, I just wanted to do it with someone.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was the case for you as well.
Yeah, I think so. I actually think I'm better off, but I also think most people are better off, especially if you're doing a startup, right? I'm trying to do a venture-backed startup.
Yeah.
I just think it's really important for you to have someone who's really strong on the technical side and someone who's really strong on the business and the commercial side. It's near impossible to find the same thing in 2 people. And it's just a lot easier if you just have, 2 people that have complementary skill sets that kind of like each other, that can get together and do that. So I think...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, complementary, yes, but also just like...
Understanding
the mindset.
Yeah.
It just needs to click.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure.
Maybe final question before we move into the rapid fire. I don't know if we told you there's a rapid fire, but there is a rapid fire. This is your Kedro moment.
Okay.
So there'll be one.
Okay.
There's no hampers though.
There's no hampers.
Yeah, that's fine. All good, yeah.
We'll
I will bask in my ego if I win.
what we'll do is, I mean, the one question I have for you is, like, take us back to like school and college and tell me, like, what was like, can you think of one, like, visually when you think back, is there like one pivotal moment that you had between the ages of, say, 16 to like 22, 23 that you think has just stayed with you? That something happened, someone told you something, you realized something, and you're like, yeah, this has stayed. I've seen a lot of the world since then, but like this has stayed with me.
Yeah. And that was it's a very clear moment and a day and an evening. Because school was a bit odd and off, right? I was not either ambitious or right out there. So I was one of those, very average students, right? Who would just be average at everything. So school was, nothing shined out. It was just this one evening in high school where I was, for the first time, comparing for an event, right? And I was an MC.
At Father Agnel.
At Father Agnel. Yeah, we went to the same school, by the way.
Where in Mumbai?
Vashi.
Yeah. And high school, I did my high school with in extension to my school, because that was the road to class 12 was there in there, and it was a very disciplined structure. So it was a, would we call it missionary? It wasn't a missionary. We had a father and so on. Okay, not like they would make us read the Bible, but
did we have? No, we didn't.
We were just
one school I went to had a scripture class, but it was an Anglican.
Right. So it was not as cornered as that, but so we used to call our principal father, and I was comparing, and right after, and he was known to be a man of few words. He still is that way, and if he said something, it meant the world to anyone and so on, right? Like his words had that weight and power and so on. So after the event, very randomly, and I was just like one guy for one set, and there were like 5 other people who were way better than me, I felt, and that's that they had so much more experience. It was my first time I was doing this. So I was given a really small set, and then he just, in the middle of the event, it was some farewell or some event, and he walked in and he said, that guy did really well, let's give him a cheer. And then I continued to do the other sets, which were ideally meant for someone else. So that one evening, and the next day I went to college or high school, the perspective was very different that everyone had towards me. So I was no longer an average kid, and everyone was just wanting to be with me, like, yeah, come sit with us, like, you want to have lunch with us, So the next day I walked in to college. We used to call it junior college, actually. Next day we walked into college. The attitude of everyone was really very different. He wasn't around, obviously. He left way early, and so every school or every college has this group of people you want to be friends with. Yeah, I was in there. And
in one day?
Just one day. It just because.
What did you say in that?
I didn't say much. I had never done this before publicly, and I just realized, and he realized it for me, that I was really good. And what happened after that day was I was the guy who was the MC, the lead MC across all of college's events. I was pushed into debates, and that's where my realization that I can publicly speak well started. I started doing, it was very late, but I mean, it's better late than never. I should have ideally done this in school, but maybe maybe there was a bit of a fear, because being an average kid, you're always fearful of what if.
Yeah, we talked about this in one of our earlier episodes, is like how everybody needs that one sort of wind to their sails, or or a little bit extra attitude that gives them that that slightly more inspiring walk. And I think that comes with one of these events where
I mean, it's different.
It comes different for everybody, right? Yeah.
But this one was for me, and that.
And so wait, what happened the next day? Like, what changed in just the way you started?
I just realized that this is my passion and calling, and if someone was giving me credit for it, I was happy because it was new.
Right.
And yeah, that's where everything just kickstarted into conversations, and I started becoming more confident with experience and so on. And that was the path to just realizing that a career which involved conversation, and back in the day, I would have said public speaking, but it wasn't really public speaking. It was just like being able to build relationships. I mean, that was the end goal or result, or that's where it culminated into what I do now.
Right.
So yeah, I think that was one night that changed quite a bit. That was one evening, and I very clearly remember that, like, no denial. And every time I every time I met him after that, even after I moved out of college, I just used to say, you know what, you gave me the direction that I never thought I would take.
Right.
So yeah.
Is there something in your 20s that you believed in that's just changed, that you don't believe in right now?
A lot of things. Okay, I'll have to think this through. I wouldn't look at whether something's changed or I believed in something, but I feel with experience, and now I'm on the earlier side of 30s. So with experience, you realize that the only way to move forward is to be humble. For me, that wasn't the case earlier. I was a little pompous. I was a little arrogant. I had that sort of a flair in the attitude. I think it was.
Father ne bol diya main hero hu, tu kaun hai sale?
One, yes, and it just like snowballed into a bunch of these publicly gratifying instances. The reason it stemmed so heavily in my 20s, or it weighed so heavily in my 20s, was because as I said, right, my schooling was very average. So there was a bit of a gap that I was carrying, or a baggage of that gap I was carrying into my 20s, which I wanted to fulfill, right? So I bloomed late across every stage, and I have that realization. So I was just trying to catch up. I was just trying to fit in. And those are some things I realized a few years back, maybe, that is not the way to grow. And I feel so much better now that I have that realization that you need to be a bit more humble. You need to be a bit more humble than you imagine you want to be, right? Like, it's not like more humble than yesterday.
How did that come about? Like, was it a realization you had yourself? Was something that happened? Were you getting like a drink with a friend? Did someone sit you down and just say, buddy, look? Or was there something that just was... Yeah, like, how do you come to a realization? Humbling is an experience.
Yeah, it was a series of events. When I started this venture 4 years back, I felt I was an amazing entrepreneur. I would have been in multiple areas, but I sucked at leading and building teams. So I was really bad, or I felt so. That was how I was I was made to feel that I was really bad at managing people. And I felt that, you know what, how is this a limitation that I can't overcome, right? So instead of going into self-introspection, I became a little more arrogant. You know what, I'm going to be a better entrepreneur. I'm going to be a better team leader, whatever, right? Like, because at the end of the day, you're managing a team. It just kept getting worse, right? And I wasn't able to connect really well with people at that time. And it was a phase that I was just not able to do that. I think how it changed was I distanced myself from managing people for a while, took a bit of a break from that role, and just focused on work and myself. And then when I looked at it from the outside, I realized that the shoes that I was in were not the best way to go about it, right?
What were some of the issues you saw?
Just like really simple stuff, right? Like, I mean, how do you give feedback to someone? The spectrum of candor versus transparency.
What were you doing earlier?
I was being both, because theoretically I was reading some books that said, radical candor, but I was not really executing it well. I was just, telling them, I'm going to be really honest with you. What you're doing is incorrect. I don't think that's the way. You need to empathize with people a little more. I do give credit to Adil for bringing or instilling that, gradually over a period of time. somewhere I think I also saw people around uh, who were very successful yet really humble, and there was the other side of the spectrum as well. Uh, but I just realized that that's I would want to be treated as as they're treating other people, right? You can't be taken for a ride or you can't be pushed around for sure, but at the end of the day, you've got to really empathize, and you can do that once you are humble and you're able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and see how they would feel. So, yeah.
And are you able to do that now? Maybe final question before
Yeah.
we move into the rapid fire, which is, are you able to do that now when something's not working? Are you able to, because it seems very mature to essentially say, I'm going to take a step back.
Yeah.
I'm going to not do it, and I'm then going to introspect and then sort of approach it from a different lens or angle. Can you take a step back now, or do you just push harder when something's not working?
I take a step back. I have some rules of life that I now abide by. I never take a decision at night because I feel that's you're just perturbed through the day, and taking a decision at night is just not right. I never respond to an email instantly as happy or as angry I am. Like these are just like really those micro instances. Always, always, right? Like if someone says something and it's to say you've lost a customer, you don't have to react to it because there's something that will always work out, right? And it's only when you have the mental bandwidth to take a step back and figure what is the solution is when the solution will be really helpful or relevant, because otherwise in the heat of the moment you would end up taking certain decisions that are a little irrational. So I think now I've been able to do that, and I do get that from people that it's who've seen me transition, that it's better, or I just realized in my conversation that yeah, I think this is going fine. And sometimes if it's not, I will say go back to Adil or ask someone else, what do you do in this case? Because you might not know everything, and that's fine.
It's very learned. Like you've learned this clearly, right? Like it's a deliberate sort of.
I think entrepreneurship is
practice also.
Yeah, it's practice, right? Like it pushes you to experience 100 different events of varying magnitude in such a short span of time that you don't have an option but to sort of like take them head on and just learn through them. That is what it does. So, and I think I just love the process. That is what I absolutely love about entrepreneurship, because there is a new challenge every single day.
You feel strongly about this. I went to him about 2 months ago and I said, I have this offer from this big company and I think I should consider it. And like he took none of that shit. Like he was just like, do you remember that evening?
Yeah,
like,
I do.
He was just like, what are you doing, man? Like, just do it. Like, you should be an entrepreneur, and it is such a pure experience.
Yeah.
Is what you said, is that I think you should do it, and like, these things will come. So I think you're quite a messiah for entrepreneurship.
I wouldn't say that.
You're an evangelist.
I'm an evangelist. I like that term actually. I'm going to use that. Yeah. Yeah, I think people, I wouldn't say anyone and everyone should become an entrepreneur because, hey, you know what? It's not for everyone and not everyone has to. But if you feel that these are few things that are in place for you and if you're mentally there, just go for it.
Cool. Okay. Rapid fire?
Let's go for it. Okay, Saksham, so did I get the name right this time?
You got it right.
So, just like we said,
you always got it right, don't worry.
By Raavan Johar, we have a rapid fire round for you.
Okay.
Since you've been so good, we might actually even pop in a hamper a little later.
Nice.
But okay, first question. If you could get dinner with any one person in this world, who would it be and why?
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Anyone in the world, right?
Yeah.
I think he is one of the most radically capitalist individuals I have met, and I would just like to have dinner with him and see what it's like. Like
You didn't even have to think for that answer.
Yeah, you just said Donald Trump off the bat.
Yeah, like I could have said Naval Ravikant and so on, but I think it's repetitive. Donald Trump is such a, I don't know, he's just like so diverse.
Sounds good. Okay.
Yeah. You're investing now.
Yeah.
You're adding checks. If you could invest in one company, in India, and you could acquire it, like just the way that
Like
Elon Musk has like done with Twitter.
Very nice.
You could just take this whole company private. It's yours to keep. Which one would you take? Try and pick an Indian company.
Yeah, sure. Very tough. I will have to take a bit of. This will need some thinking because.
Top of your head.
I think if I can do that with any company, it would be Jio.
Why?
Why not? Like they have everything that. I mean, just imagine the news.
Jio is not acquirable.
Yeah, but okay, sure. Yeah.
But if I could, I would totally do that. Yeah, you want to pick a.
Give me a smaller company.
Okay,
Give us a startup.
You want a smaller company. Oh my God, this is tough. I would say, for the lack of a better one right now, I would say Cred.
Cred. Okay. Cool. That's a good one.
Okay. This popped right in, but for a lot of reasons I wouldn't acquire. But then, got to be in the news, man, for this.
Kunal, if you're watching this, okay. Your favorite quality in someone you're looking to hire?
Ambition.
How do you test for that?
I think ambition is my weak spot everywhere. If you're ambitious, you would make things work. You will figure out a way. If you're ambitious, you're not going to look at the frills of what you get in a role or a job. You'd rather look at what you can add value to, and it would be a win-win.
How are you testing that? How can you tell if someone's ambitious?
Yeah, so bunch of things. You understand their motivation and drivers for why they're getting into this role or a job. Do they have the potential to become an entrepreneur? Because I think that's hugely important. If someone can get out of this company or a venture that I run and start their own, I think that's the biggest success rate that I can pride myself on. So some of those factors, or if they've been an entrepreneur, or they have that sort of a mindset to just like think, pause, and then react. Some of those cues, and you realize this in conversation over a period of time.
Okay.
What's a great quote from either a book or a movie or a celebrity interview, what have you, that just lives rent-free in your head?
Yeah, it's with, I think this is Elon Musk's philosophy, or maybe it's borrowed from someone, I don't know. It is that life is a positive-sum game, it's not a zero-sum game, so you should always look to just put stuff out there and collaborate with people instead of competing with them.
No scarcity mindset. That's
Yeah.
what they call it.
Yeah. Is this Elon Musk? Because I feel this is Elon Musk, right? Like, I mean, things that he's doing with Tesla and there's no proprietorship to anything that he does. It's all out there, publicly available for people to copy. And he feels that if someone can copy, it just grows the sector or what he's into.
Yeah,
Even if that's
maybe debatable with what he's
for
up to.
sure, but I just borrow the mindset. I'm not
Yeah.
getting into the nuance of it, but yeah,
that makes sense.
that's the mindset that I absolutely like, and that's something that I now live by.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's validation. Great.
yeah, cool.
Last question.
Okay.
Slightly morbid. You're 93 years old, right?
Yeah.
In a few years' time.
Yeah.
And you are looking back at life and all of the different things that have happened.
Yeah.
What is that one thing,
Yeah.
if it happened or has already happened?
Yeah.
Okay. So either it's already happened or it could potentially happen
After 93.
in the future.
Yeah.
That you would look back and say, Maza aaya, life was great. But it has to be just one thing.
Oh yeah. I thought you were gonna ask if there was one thing you could change. Yeah.
You could add that too.
Yeah, I think for me, that one thing is always the leap of faith into entrepreneurship. I don't think there was a better decision than that. And whatever happens from here, I would take it very gracefully. I will be happy to fail, really happy to succeed. But I think if I wouldn't have given it a shot, I would have felt incomplete. And if there was one thing I could change, I think that would be getting into sports back in school. because I feel sports is a mindset.
That's mine too. Like, you know, I grew up in Nigeria, and one of the reasons I moved to India was to play cricket.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And not that I was any good at it in Nigeria either.
Right.
But I feel like if I'd actually done something, maybe I would have gotten a good IPL contract. So I actually like...
Yeah, I don't know if I wanted to build a career into it, but I definitely wanted... Yeah, I wanted to get very active into sports, and I just did not think that through back in school. So I would totally change that.
Cool. Do you have any final thoughts, questions? Do you have comments for us? Like, what's in your head now?
No, I think this was great. Very... I haven't done this in a while. So the ability to be...
You're a podcast expert. You're talking to podcasts like virgins. Like, do you think we did decent?
Yeah, you guys did really well. Because you were able to... I'm not getting into You guys did really well. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think my neck's a little strained with just moving around. But yeah, no, totally love this. It brings out things that you don't often speak to yourself about, I feel. So, yeah, I think we should do more podcasts. I mean, like, the world should do more podcasts.
That's true.
Cool beans.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Saksham.